Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivemy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the new Bad Boys film. We're talking about Bad Boys, Ride or Die.
We are talking about Bad Boys, Ride or Die. The fourth one, if you're into numbers. If you're into numbers, and
it's Bad Boys 4.
It's Bad Boys 4.
It's Bad Boys 4.
We will be referring to this as Bad Boys 4 from henceforth.
I think so. I think I'm just going to switch. Yeah,
I'm not going to remember the subtitle. And also Ride or Die seems like you stole it from Fast and Furious, even though they've never used that. It just feels like that's theirs.
Yeah, I understand that it is a general expression that people can use in many circumstances.
No one's trademarked
but it's largely a car-based expression in the realm of an action franchise.
In the realm of an action franchise. And not that there are no cars in Bad Boys, but I would say there's as many cars as normal movies have that aren't about cars.
Yeah, just an amount of cars.
Yeah, just like transportation happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple chase scenes.
There is, but there's also like a plane.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff going on. It's not car-based.
It's not a car-based action franchise.
It's not drawn into the cars, but they are trying to ride or die.
They are trying to?
It's the fourth time they are riding and dying. So there is
spoiler-free section.
There we go. We're getting into some stuff here. So this is a new movie, and anytime we talk about a new movie on the podcast, we like to give you a spoiler-free review. So in case you're on the fence about seeing it, or you want a taste of the episode before you do, whatever your reason, we'll give you a spoiler-free review. Then once you hear the theme music, we will enter the spoiler-filled section. For the spoiler-free review, let's start with the usual, the simple question. Diana, did you like it?
I really liked it. This was just fun. It was just dumb fun. I guess the plot probably made sense. I'm not going to think about it too hard. But Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are just really funny. There's some great gags in this. There's some really good action and some really smart ways of doing action with two aging stars who are your leads that I'll get into in the spoiler-filled section. But I was very, very impressed by. I was like, oh, what a great way to have a really cool action sequence in the middle of this movie that's super high end. I just thought it was funny. It moved along. Every different scenario they got into was funnier and more extreme. It was Ride or Die for the Bad Boys. For the fourth time, even though I don't think I've seen 2, but I probably would have been Ride or Die for 2. So I just had a lot of fun. I think it's got heart. I think it's very, very funny. It's more silly than anything, and I think the action's real good. And what more do you want from a Bad Boys movie? It's pretty close to a love, but it's definitely just a high like. But yeah, I had a great time. I was laughing my ass off. Wonderful. Andrew, did you like Bad Boys 4?
I liked it. Not as much as you. Okay. I'm not a high like. I liked it fine.
All right.
I thought the middle dragged a little bit for me. I think that there are kind of a few loose ends here that could be snipped up. But I think that when it works, it works. It's these two still have a lot of charisma together on screen. They're very funny. It's very punchy. The directors of this, who also directed the last one in the series, the third Bad Boys movie, Arby and Falla, they do a phenomenal job of doing a Michael Bay impression with the dial turned to 12 and then ripped clean off. I think that this is a really great job of a couple of directors damn near doing parody of a Bay-esque film in a way that just it's just so much. It's wildly extra. If you are someone who's I don't really like Michael Bay's stuff, but this is a different director, I wonder if it's no, you will hate this. You will if you don't like Michael Bay, you will hate this. It is a heightened version of that, and I think that that makes it it borders on parody. It goes up to the line of that adds some comedy to it. It gets really funny in certain places. I could even deal with would have liked a little more of that, quite frankly. But yeah, I think it's funny. I think that Lawrence and Smith still have charm and charisma bouncing off one another. They're very funny comedic actors. I agree with you. There's some interesting action stuff here that is that would not work in any other movie, and I'm not going to recommend a single film try to emulate any of the successes that this movie had, because it is so entirely that is insane and your own and does not work in any movie that is not a Michael Bay impression. Mm-hmm. So it has some unique stuff and some cool stuff that I wouldn't want any other movies emulating, but there is some fun and clever ways of doing action scenes. I agree with aging action stars.
Yeah, because there is like every action scene's a little bit unique and a little bit different. And I think that's pretty cool. I think some work better than others, but every scene I'm like, I appreciate that you tried something.
Yeah.
Every single action scene, you tried something. You didn't just phone any of these in.
Every single, yes. And no scene is done twice.
Yes, that's what's kind of cool about it. And there's a lot of action.
Yeah, yeah. And I do really respect that. I do really like it when a movie would rather like alienate me than bore me with the same successful thing over and over again. Mm-hmm. And this movie really does that. The final action set piece, I'm like, oh, and every single action scene along the way, I'm like, this is not at all the same, same genre, the same style, the same props, the same threats. This is in the same execution. It's not the same in any way. It's in no way the same every single piece. And I think it's very unique and quirky and fun.
It is quirky and fun, but I also agree with what you said about how this almost feels like a Michael Bay parody at times. Like there's certain scenes where I'm like, is this a 22 Jump Street movie or 21, whatever number you want to go with? Jump Streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels to the point of Jump Street parody. And then other times I'm like, did Michael Bay direct this? I wasn't sure going in. I hadn't checked before we sat down. I was like, he's really cranked his own dial up. But like, the vibes are there. And it also feels very much like a sequel to, I know we just watched Bad Boys 1 on the Patreon, but it is really cool to be like, oh man, this is almost like a direct sequel to 1.
Yeah.
There's so much like references and like callbacks to the original that I was like, this is fun. Yeah. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say that we'll talk more about that in the full section. And can it be spoiled?
Can it be spoiled? Probably not. Who's really entrenched in the Bad Boys franchise looking for spoilies? So probably not.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I also think it can't be spoiled. It is an action movie. They drive cars. They shoot guns. There is a plot of like, who's the bad guy? And you pretty much know who the bad guy is. I ain't too worried about it.
Andrew called it way before we went into the theater. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah,
it's very good.
It's a pretty predictable bad guy. You can kind of call it by looking at just the cast listing on IMDb. You could shoot that shot from 100 yards away pretty easy. So I don't really think it can be spoiled. If you're one of the absolute few of the diest hard of Bad Boys fans, if you are listening to this right now while looking over at the framed posters of Bad Boys 1 through 3 on your wall, then yeah, go in fresh and it can be spoiled because it does hit you with some Bad Boys lore. But if
there is lore,
there
yes.
there is lore,
agree.
yeah. But if you ain't tits deep in Bad Boys lore, I think you're going to be just fine about. I don't think it can be spoiled.
I also think if you're tits deep in Bad Boys lore, you don't need us.
You don't need us.
You're going.
You don't need us.
You're going to the movie.
You're the ride or die.
You're Bad Boys ride or die.
You're the titular ride or die that they're talking about.
Fans.
It's about the fans the whole time. Well, I before we get into the spoiler-filled section of today's episode, we do want to take a moment to thank our sponsor of today's episode. We want to thank our friends over at Mint Mobile.
I want to thank Mint Mobile. I'm ride or die for Mint Mobile.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Interesting, because I've gotten to say goodbye to my overpriced wireless plan and my jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages because of Mint Mobile, and they're very affordable plans.
They're good boys.
They're the good boys.
They're the good boys, or bad boys in the colloquial sense where bad means good.
They're bad boys because they're like breaking out of the mold of wireless providers.
Oh, wow.
And the other wireless providers, they don't like this.
They've got to be just so furious about how much Mint Mobile are bad boys, because they are going to offer you plans starting at $15 a month, and all of them come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And you can use your own phone, bring along your phone number, your existing contacts, just make a real easy switch.
Yeah, Mint Mobile only exists online. They have no brick or mortar stores. That's how they save you so much money. That's why the other wireless providers are mad at them about these $15 a month plan. But their website is so easy to use. It's so straightforward. You're not going to have any issues. You're going to be like, that's it. I'm done. Solved.
Super easy to use. We had a fantastic time. And to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/TFS. That's mintmobile.com/TFS. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/TFS. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And thank you, Mint Mobile, for your support.
Thank you, Mint Mobile.
And now let's get into the spoiler-filled section of the episode. Let's talk more about Bad Boys Ride or Die. All right, we have seen the Bad Boys. We both had a 4. We had a pretty good time. You far more than me, it would seem. Like, I liked it. I think it had flashes of brilliance. I liked that it did weird stuff, but I didn't high like it.
I would never
I'm happy
give it.
for you.
I would never give it a love, and I actually feel like I liked it more than it deserved. Yeah, like I will say the flashes of brilliance maybe are what is sticking with me, and I do love leaving a theater feeling something and remembering a big moment. Like, this movie starts hot. The first act is fire.
It is a fire first act, and I feel like that's maybe why like I'm only at a like that. I'm like it didn't
live up to the first act.
It didn't maintain the promise that the first act offered, and that first act is so funny and hot and charming and cool and just everything.
It has so much energy and comedy, and then the drama dips back into comedy immediately, and it's like you're on a roller coaster of what's happening. Yeah, just opening with the convenience store robbery on the way to a wedding this whole sequence is so funny. They're 4 movies in, and they're both so exhausted about how many times they've been mugged. And it's the convenience store clerk is ratting Martin Lawrence out about how much stuff he bought. It is a perfect sequence. And then they prove they are bad boys because Will Smith shoots a man and then leaves the scene of the crime to go get married.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that, even if you are currently like a licensed cop.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that for anyone, forever.
I think if you're like on the run illegal criminal, you can do it.
Oh, right. Yeah, you can't legally do that anyone.
No. That was pretty extreme for a convenience store robbery.
Yeah.
I don't think you're just supposed to shoot people that do that.
No, you're not supposed to do a lot of the things that these cops do.
They're the bad boys.
They're the bad boys, you see. But yes, incredibly funny. Even just like opening on a high-speed chase to nothing. No one's chasing them. It's just ridiculous Michael Bay-esque car shots of a speeding Porsche going through Miami traffic, shots of the Miami sign, and like just
Miami sign's looking way better.
They've cleaned it up a bit since the first film, and then like shots of the port, and like here we are speeding, and then just like the comedy of them in the car, Martin Lawrence about to puke, giving him 90 seconds to go get a ginger ale, getting a shitty day-old hot dog on the way to a wedding.
And being so excited about it. He was jazzed. Yeah, all of the comedy works. I will say let's right off the top have a negative of wow, a lot of product placement in this movie.
Okay.
Because right off the bat he's like Skittles. I need Skittles. And the ginger ale is generic. He says just generic. And they have established he eats Skittles in previous movies.
This has been a 4-movie product placement.
So I will say, I mean, in the first one, it was an ad lib. So I actually think this is just continuity.
I think it might just be Martin Lawrence likes Skittles as a human person.
Just be Martin Lawrence likes Skittles. Yeah,
I mean, at this point, they're getting some money from them.
I mean, after we saw Shazam 2 with those huge fucking Skittles section, we know Skittles is putting money into movies.
Skittles has money.
And I hate this every time because Skittles is what I eat when I watch a movie. And I hate that like they think they got me. It always makes me feel bad.
It feels like they got you.
It feels like they got me, but I'm a Skittles ride or die.
I understand.
And you know that about me.
You've always been about that Skittles life.
I have always lived that Skittle life.
Yeah, you've always been about that Skittles life. Skittles, I think some Doritos product placement, a few other things.
Tons of Doritos.
It is weird that they stopped for the ginger ale and there's no ginger ale product placement. And I'm like, but you have Doritos.
You must have been able to say like a flat Pepsi.
I thought Doritos' parent company was Pepsi. Like what? Doesn't Pepsi own? Pepsi must own a ginger ale. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, a little product placement. But it's a very funny scene in the convenience store, and also just like a really nice. I think that this movie is trying to kind of wrap up the franchise and be the bookend, be like you're not getting another one of these, and taking a moment to have a comedic beat to parallel the first. I think is just a nice little thing. Like we're not hardcore Bad Boys fans, and I don't feel like those really exist. But it's like, oh, that's cute.
It's cute.
It shows me that you like this, and that energy kind of carries over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not trying to like make a new thing. You're like, no, it's still the Bad Boys, and they're still like. They're oddly cute, but like we're ramping them up because it's 2024. And even though they were groundbreaking in 95 because they're the first ones to do crosstalk and high energy stuff. And boy, you got to ramp it up even more in 2024. But yeah, they do it. And then that leads into the wedding scene, which might be the hardest I've laughed in a movie in my entire life because the absolute whiplash of Martin Lawrence like having a heart attack at Will Smith's wedding. It's very dramatic and like it's actually like kind of like, oh shit.
It's a pretty well done scene. And even before that, I would say even just showing the wedding using Bay-esque camera angles, like doing a full 360 whip pan around like a bride and groom's first dance and just insane camera movements it is treating it like it is a full-on gang war shootout. And it is a pretty nice wedding. And
some weddings can feel like that.
I like that. That is true.
You know what? I've been to weddings that felt like a war zone.
They can get a little lit later. And also even just the charm of like him giving the speech and like choking up right away. Be like, this guy, like there's a lot of fun charm here. And then it gets to the inciting incident of this movie. Or I guess not plot inciting incident.
Not plot inciting.
Not plot relevant in a lot of ways.
Character inciting incident.
That Martin Lawrence's character, Marcus, has a heart attack on the dance floor of the wedding.
He has a heart attack and it's very dramatic and they do this like great thing that like a lot of movies do in these kind of sections where he pictures himself falling into water, but Will Smith is also like performing CPR, like it's very dramatic. And then just like the slow transition, and they actually do a pretty cool transition where it's clothes change, Martin Lawrence's clothes change and like the hospital gown goes on. And then it does this incredible slow transition to him experiencing all of time and reincarnation. And he goes on what is very clearly a parody of Black Panther's Soul Dimension.
The astral plane, I think.
Astral plane where you can speak to your ancestors. But the only person there is Joe Pantoliano. And it's the funniest thing
that's
ever happened in a movie.
On a beach with a parrot.
But like there's so many Black Panther-esque things that have happened. Like all the shots of like nature and history are definitely from Africa.
Well, the fact that like he starts like as he's dying starts seeing the past and it flashes through the previous Bad Boys movies and then it like goes back through time and then it cuts to like a lizard crawling out of the ocean and it's just so fucking funny that he is seeing not just a flashback of the Bad Boys films, but he is seeing all of time.
All of time, yeah.
Oh my God, it's funny. And it is funny that they use these like stock footage flashes. But yes, the underwater getting CPR, his costumes change while he goes from standing to laying. It is sincerely very well executed filmmaking on every aspect of of wardrobe, costume, blocking, camera work, every single aspect. This is very well executed.
It's wildly well executed in the drama and the comedy of the scene, which clashes together instantly. Like it so quickly goes from drama to comedy, and it works incredibly well. Yeah, I think I do think as much as like I said, I really quite liked this movie a lot. It's all downhill from here. This sequence to me is just absolutely killer in terms of filmmaking, in terms of just making me feel two different things at once, in terms of just the biggest laugh I've had in a theater in forever.
Going to the Black Panther space, but it's just Joe Pantoliano on a beach with one tree, just like kind of like the Black Panther space, and it's just like a parrot and that he's talking to, and that's it.
And then
it's so stupid. I love it.
And he does that cliche thing where Joe Pantoliano says one thing really loud, and then whispers another thing to save later in the movie.
They never come back to what that is.
No, he does.
Do they?
Yeah, he doesn't really they never show him saying it, but Martin Lawrence, I think, told Will Smith, "You're a storm's coming and you'll have to make a choice." I think that's what he said.
I never thought that was what he was, because he says that as soon as he wakes up. So I'm like,
it's not much of a secret.
No.
I thought that's what it was.
Interesting. Okay.
Or maybe it's the thing where Will Smith's having the panic attack and he's like, "It's not your fault."
Oh, maybe.
But that was a different angle. Like that wasn't the astral plane.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think they actually pay that off in any way.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's so weird that like this is so funny up through and the fact that then Martin Lawrence thinks that he can't die because he knows that it's not his time. That is super funny, and like all of this is great. Largely plot irrelevant, and like really only gets even a couple of jokes there for like from there on out. We go back to Martin Lawrence's like family, and we have like a couple jokes of like his wife threw out all the junk food, and now he'd really like Skittles because he hasn't had junk food in like an hour, not even that long. And that's really kind of like the Skittles thing comes back once later, but there's not really a running thing of like, you've got to be careful due to your heart. Cause they have a conversation of like, no junk food, no yelling, no raising your heart rate.
You just have to rest. Yeah, it does. I will say like it's weird how the branches of character arc in this kind of like hit each other and then stop, because I feel like Martin Lawrence's character is, I just had a heart attack. Oh, I can't have all the stuff I like now. And that's supposed to be my arc. And then as soon as Will Smith starts having panic attacks, Martin Lawrence's arc is done.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't continue through. Yeah, he really doesn't ever worry about having a heart attack again. Well, no one else does either. No one else is like, your heart.
Slow down. Yeah, he thinks he's invulnerable, and that's the joke, but that's kind of it.
And he got like one juice drink, and then he was like, I'm good. I don't need any Skittles. I don't need any candy anymore. Like, there's not even a moment where he like just steals some off a counter anywhere, or like,
the movie ends with him eating a Skittle and his wife yells at him, or
that'd be fun.
Yeah, something. You could do something else with it. But yeah, it's largely irrelevant. But like him like being on the roof of the hospital and thinking he's invulnerable now, and then running through traffic as well. I don't know if this is meant to be a joke/nod to Martin Lawrence's famous psychotic break where he ran towards oncoming traffic.
Yeah. Was that like that happened and then 30 Rock made fun of it?
Yes. Tracy,
so that was a real thing and then they parodied it.
That's right. Tracy Jordan's breakdown that gets him on like the show within the show on 30 Rock, that gets him on TGS, is a parody of Martin Lawrence's breakdown where he ran into oncoming traffic holding a gun. On 30 Rock, he was holding a lightsaber. But he was like running half naked into traffic holding a gun, asking people to like saying that he can't die.
Huh.
So I don't know if this is I don't know if he has a sense of humor about that now.
Wildly self-aware of him, because there was definitely no Chris Rock slap jokes from Will Smith. Like we were not airing dirty laundry in this movie on both sides of this dual-starred movie.
Yeah.
Huh. But you're right. That is very similar.
That's basically his breakdown. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's been long enough.
It's been long enough.
Honestly, I actually thought at this point I was like the 30 Rock thing was like a thing they made up. I kind of forgot it was.
I mean, it's kind of disappeared.
It's the only reason I remember it.
And it's also at a time of celebrity gossip where celebrities just got away with more shit too, because
we didn't have enough internet yet.
Well, and everyone was just like, "Oh, cocaine. That's cocaine. You I think were recently in rehab or will soon to be in rehab, and like everyone knows you have a coke problem and it's cocaine." And his publicist was like, "No, he was really dehydrated. It's okay. He just needed some water." And like everyone was like, "Well, that's what they said, so that's what it is." And everyone just kind of rolled with it. And that really wouldn't fly today, to be like, "No, he was thirsty. He was just thirsty." You can really pull that shit today.
Yeah, he can just go to rehab for 6 months and we'll actually genuinely forget about it because the internet had no memory yet.
Yeah, I think to a certain degree. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that was meant to be a joke about him, but either way, I thought it was all quite funny.
It is quite funny, and I will say I actually think this is really smart because I was wondering how they were going to do this movie, because we didn't review number 3 for this podcast, but we've seen 3. And much of 3 arcs around the idea that Martin Lawrence is now too old for this shit.
Yeah.
He's got like glasses.
They're
and he's
both
not
too
in
old
shape.
for this shit. Yeah.
They are, but Will Smith is not, really. I mean, he's still like pretty, but like in 3, it's very much Martin Lawrence more than Will Smith is too old for this. And I was like, man, how are they going to do 4 if like in 3 they were already too old for this? Like that joke's kind of over. So I think it's actually really smart to give him a full heart attack and then have him like have a reset on his life. I'm not too old for this.
Yeah.
I feel very alive. I feel young again. It's actually kind of brilliant because I was worried they were just going to do all the same jokes again from 3 about how they're too old still.
And to have the guy who has been doing better now start have panic attacks. Like, I really liked that character switch as well. To
The
be
guy
like,
who's always been the cool, chill one.
and even flipping the roles of the first kind of chase scene that they have, where they're running through traffic or whatever. When Will Smith's character is having the panic attack and laying down in the street, and Martin Lawrence has to run and tackle him out of the way and let the bad guy go to save his partner, paralleling what Will did for him in the first movie. I was like, that's also really nice. It's a level of attention to detail that I'm like, for people who aren't us watching the movies to cover them for podcasts, I don't think anyone's remembering these details like these are Star Wars movies or some shit. It just shows that you liked, like, the people making this like it and have a reverence for it, and I think that that's really nice.
I do think it's nice because it's a scene that absolutely works if you don't remember Bad Boys 1. Like, if you don't remember that this happened in the first one, it's still like, oh, he saved his partner. That's great. It was still high tension. There were still stakes here. But if you do remember 1, you're like, oh, shit, like the first one, but reversed.
Yeah.
I love that. They're like, they're still growing and changing and saving each other in the same but different ways. Yeah, it's reverence doesn't feel like the word, but like honoring, like it. These new directors very much respect this franchise.
Yes.
They're like, no, what Michael Bay did was cool. We're going to amp it up a little, but like, those movies were cool.
And we'll have a joke, but, you know, like, we'll be kind of silly by showing Martin Lawrence's character all of time and sending him to the Black Panther astral space.
And Michael Bay wouldn't have done that.
Michael Bay wouldn't have done that, but that doesn't shit on what Michael Bay created with those first 2 movies, you know, like everything that's kind of weirder or bigger or more esoteric. It's not poo-pooing what made this. I will say the one thing though that this movie tries, and this is kind of a bigger picture thing that I want to talk about, and it's very strange because this is clearly like a movie that is saying goodbye, to be like, we're not doing any more. Like, this is it. See you later. Have a good day. That this movie very desperately wants to be Fast and Furious.
Ride or die.
Down to the title, to be like, we're ride or die. It's like, there's not that much car stuff, but okay, I guess like it is like just an expression, ride or die, but it's one that when you put it in a film title, you maybe think a little bit more car stuff. And then just everything about the approach of how they do this story feels like very much being like, we're bringing all the crew back together. The hits you remember. DJ Khaled's here. Remember when he got knocked out in the 3rd movie? And I'm like, I don't.
I also don't. I assumed that was a callback, but...
And like,
I'm like,
what?
was Tiffany Haddish in the 3rd one?
Was she? I don't know. And like, so there's some new stuff, some old stuff, and it's like,
I literally just remember Will Smith's son.
Yeah, I forgot that, and thankfully they reminded, but they were like, Marcus is here, and remember the captain's U.S. Marshal daughter? I'm like, what? There's too much, and like, I don't really care about a lot of this. Like, they're acting like it's Jason Statham and The Rock showing up to be like, the whole family's here. The one who hunted us from the law and the one who hunted us from the side of criminals. And they're both here working the same case. And I'm like, this is not Jason Statham and The Rock.
No.
This is somebody and somebody else. And those are the 2 people you have in your franchise.
Holy shit, is that somebody and somebody else? Oh my God.
I didn't know they could get somebody else for this movie.
Oh shit, they did a little flashback. That person was in a previous movie, you guys.
Whoa.
I didn't remember that in any way.
Yeah.
And then the only character they brought back who I did remember, because we just watched 1, is Fletcher, and they shot him in the goddamn head immediately.
Yeah.
So rude. That guy was awesome.
That guy was awesome. And also a pretty good actor for an NBA player.
Yeah. Oh no, he sells it.
Ex-NBA player John Sally. He's incredible.
I absolutely would just think he was just an actor who happened to be tall.
He does have, he's doing
His
really well.
His energy is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't shoot him in the head.
No.
Shoot him with like a non-life-threatening injury so he can be like, oh no! Or like, and like hit his legs so he's not tall anymore, and that's the gimmick. I don't know.
One of the original he was one of the bad boy Pistons. That was the joke of having him in the movie, is that he's supposed to be the original bad boy.
Oh, I mean, I think it just worked as a joke that they got a really tall man to play a hacker.
That's
just funny as hell.
I also agree that that's just fucking funny
That's just fucking, even if you don't know, I didn't know he was a Piston. I thought it was just damn funny to have a really tall man be a hacker.
He was a Piston during the era of the bad boy Pistons.
Oh shit, that's even better.
So he's famously one of the more famous bad boys.
So they got a famous bad boy who's super tall, and they were like, what if that guy played a hacker?
I love that. It's super funny.
Great casting.
But rude how they killed him.
Although the cameos in this are fun. Michael Bay's actually in it for a second, so obviously they are very respectful to him. He clearly was like, yeah, you guys are doing great work.
Yeah.
DJ Khalid is here. Khalid.
Yeah.
Very funny that he showed up in the scene right after Tiffany Haddish asked for oral sex. To me, that felt pointed.
He showed up to be
that felt absolutely
He showed
pointed.
up and is like, no. It's like, get out of here.
We're going to hit you with a car because you don't do oral.
You get out of here. No one likes you. No one needs you here.
Time to die.
And Kabi, I think his name is, the shrug,
the shrug meme guy.
They have him. That's a fun little one-off joke. I don't mind that.
That's a fun one-off. They also did a ton of press with him, like on his channel.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's fun.
It's actually really fun sketches. Like Will and Martin are like trying to do something too complicated, and he just shows them an easier way over and over again. You can picture it.
Okay, yeah.
You can.
Of course. Okay, I get. You mean the premise to that joke? Yeah. I imagine he would be doing more of those. He just
brought more people in.
And I don't actually mean that to diminish him. I think he is incredible at doing that setup. It is just remarkable the amount of legs that he's gotten out of that, and is incredibly talented at it. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of like little cameos, but yeah, Michael Bay was the fun one.
I want to talk about the action for a moment.
Okay, cool. Lay it on me.
I would like to talk about the thing I mentioned about how I think they do two really smart action sequences without Will and Martin, which is, I think, like, and they absolutely work, and it's so smart. And it is the prison attack on Will's son. And then it's like the Martin son fighting off the guys who are coming to take them hostage, who is a Marine. So it kind of pays off. And it's so great because it's like, yes, we know who these characters are, and they're usually in danger. Anyone who knows the bad boys are in danger. But like by having these characters who technically are important, but like aren't really like doing a lot, and without Will and Martin there, you're like, oh, we can actually just have like 15 stunt guys go fucking nuts. We don't need the actual actors who get millions of dollars here. We've got the actors who get like $100,000 here. We can do a whole bunch of time on this fight scene and just go crazy and never have to worry about having our aging stars here. I think it's a wildly great way to have two really good fight scenes in the middle of this. Because, yeah, I think the prison fight scene is brutal and awesome. And then the Martin son, like, just killing 15 dudes is probably too brutal, if I'm being honest, but cool in a John Wick way.
They flat out gave a John Wick scene.
They gave that guy, and like Martin didn't act like his son was like a cool Marine. Like, because there's a bunch of people who are Marines and don't just have a John Wick sequence where they kill 15 dudes on the fly.
Yeah,
not even ready for
There's
it?
not a ton of John Wicks out there.
No.
I think that's the premise to John Wick, is that John Wick's kind of a 1 in a million type of a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, like if I found out this twist in this movie was that Martin's son was involved in the cartel, I'd be like, yeah, I could kind of see something was going on when he had a full John Wick.
I mean, I do like the joke that they end on with him, which is like Will and Martin kind of like joking to be like, something's wrong in his eyes.
He is a little fucked up.
And that guy is actually doing a really good job of playing that as well. I'm gonna say, like, he does a really good job of that kind of like quiet, fucked up performance, kind of building to that, and a great job of that action choreography for the amount that he does versus I wouldn't be able to tell you how much a stunt person was doing there.
Yeah, I didn't check if you are a stunt person or an actor because he only had like 3 lines.
Right.
So I was like, are you even an actor or mostly stunts?
But either way, that John Wick action scene where it is a home invasion, everyone is coming to get the family of Marcus, and his son, the Marine, just takes out everyone as Marcus and Mike kind of like watch through the CCTV cameras, which is fun how it was going in and out of the cameras as well. And it's just like another thing where it's like, it's highly stylized. Is it necessary to have a scene where everyone's watching the action scene happen through CCTV footage and we do like a Matrix style sound effect as the camera goes through a monitor and then into the living room? We don't need any of that, but no other action scene in this movie is like it. And it's just kind of wild. Yeah.
I think the only weird part, I don't know if it was this action scene, was when they did a full close-up of the dude's fingers as he typed.
I thought that was hilarious.
That was so dumb. I don't even dislike it, but like it was just like see, like you could tell they were CG fingers. I was like, this.
Oh,
feels
I didn't
like,
notice that.
Oh yeah, like it wasn't like because it was so close to his fingies, and like it felt very like Matrix 2, not Matrix 1. They would have done a better job. It felt Matrix 2-y of like, or like just an episode of like NCIS or something.
See, I loved it. Going for the full bigasm, but on hacking and fingers and a keyboard. Treating
I work the drones.
It's so funny to treat it exactly the same and no differently than a car chase. I think that is just brilliant.
It is. No, it was really funny. I'm not knocking it sincerely. It's just so silly and it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That it was very funny. But yeah, I thought it was really smart to have these two separate action scenes that don't involve Will and Martin.
It's kind of wild to me that like as much as I felt like that middle dragged for a few different reasons, even though there's a lot of action scenes in this movie, there is the Sun kind of prison yard fight sequence, which is awesome, kind of like hand-to-hand combat.
With like just brutal, like using weights from the gym to kill guys.
Yeah. So Will Smith's son, the prison yard fight. Then it's Martin Lawrence's son, the home invasion John Wick fight. Then there's also like the plane crash set piece of like fighting on a plane with the door open as it's going down, which is really cool and a lot of fun as well.
There's the shootout where Fletcher dies and then they go on the freeway.
Yeah, and then the burning van that explodes as well. Burning van ruled. There's a lot of really cool, very different action scenes in this middle, and I feel like the plot just isn't motivated properly and just doesn't move at the right clip to motivate these kind of action scenes in between.
I actually feel like the scenes were very motivated and then there was too much bullshit in between them. Like
Right.
you got the big plane crash and then the next scene was the burning van. And in between those two scenes in particular was just a ton of stuff. It was because you have like the lady they know at the cops and then the blonde cop.
Yeah.
And that's two different things that are happening and they both had scenes in between. And then the three guys on the run had three scenes. It's like one scene at the fire, one scene when we're walking, one scene when we run into the hillbillies and we steal their car.
Yeah.
It was just like scenes those scenes didn't do anything.
And they weren't funny enough.
They weren't funny enough. Well, nothing that doesn't involve Will Smith and Martin Lawrence was funny at all.
But I'm even going to say like Will and Martin stealing the hillbillies' clothes. I'm going to say that like none of the jokes in that scene really landed.
It didn't. The premise was really good. The premise really works on paper that they accidentally stole these clothes that say like Reba McEntire and they can't think of any Reba McEntire songs. But it doesn't work though.
The two of them at the strip club with Tiffany Haddish, that falls flat as well.
That fucking sucked. I mean, I don't really like Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah, but
anyway.
There were no jokes in that scene at all.
I mean, it was kind of funny when Martin Lawrence told him to just close his eyes to do oral sex and Tiffany
try to
Haddish
negotiate
had to
it.
move.
Yeah.
That's actually a very
all right,
funny
that's all
compromise.
right. That's all right.
But the rest of the scene wasn't funny.
Yeah.
He's
But
like,
then-
it's not cheating if you just sit there.
If you just stand there with your tongue out, she just smashes her pussy against your mouth.
He's not wrong.
All right, that's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah. So there's one all right
There's
there.
one joke. And like,
Yeah.
and that's like a 20 to 25 minute sequence.
It's a good chunk of movie, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then U.S. Marshal and the cop and then the FBI agent
and then the mayor.
and then the mayor. Yeah, and there's just kind of a lot of like farting around, I'm going to say, of like, and what does the mayor have to say? And look, the other cop got a phone call. Okay. And then the U.S. Marshal walked into the tent and was like, we're looking for them. And that happened in the tent. And it's like, none of this really is anything. It's just kind of killing time.
All you need is the U.S. Marshal being like, they're on the run and we're going to chase them. And then they just get to go be chased.
Yeah.
That's literally all you need. Because
Yeah.
even the scenes with like Will Smith and his son, he's like, they don't make any character development and they're also not emotional enough and they're not funny at all. They're not trying to be. But yeah, there's way too many of them. So yeah, I agree that part drags and definitely you could cut most of that out. Like all we need to know is that they're on the run. Because then it goes into a sequence that I actually wanted to be way longer and more of the movie, where this movie actually kind of turns into the Warriors for about 15 minutes. Because
Right. / John Wick of like put out the hit to all the gangs.
Yeah, the cartel has put out this bounty on all the gangs. So, Tiffany Haddish and the strippers are like taking them hostage and DJ Khaled shows up and then another gang we don't even know shows up. And I'm like, oh, this is so Warriors. I love this. This is really fun. And it ends pretty quickly. And I would have liked if we just gotten there sooner and lived in the Warriors section more.
Yeah, because like they put out the hit, like let everyone know, get me these two dead or alive, and we keep intercutting that, or the film keeps intercutting that with clips of the U.S. Marshal who never meet or interact with him for the whole movie. So it's this like, oh, we've got 9 different gangs chasing down and taking them dead or alive. And then it's like one U.S. Marshal who's like, set up a roadblock. And then but nothing comes of that. So I don't know why we're intercutting with the law when there's already enough reason for them to be scared and keep moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we could, although I will say this movie is only 2 hours flat. Thank you so much for not being 2.5 hours. But I think you can cut like 10 minutes out of there.
I think there might be like 15 that could really go. Yeah.
This would really have moved.
Not even to try to be like, oh, it's too long, but just to be like, there's 15 in here that just are irrelevant. It's not even trying to make it shorter. It's just being like, there's some irrelevant time in here. To talk about the bad guy of the movie for a moment.
Johan Gruffel or the other guy?
Yeah, Johan Gruffel.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I was going to talk about you. Who's the other guy?
I don't know, just the other guy who
Oh, Henchman McCanchy.
Henchman. Actually, you know what? I think I know his name. His name was James. James McCarthy? James McCrae? James?
Nah, I don't think it's coming.
The only reason I think I know is because he has the same name as one of the Ninja Warriors.
Oh, does
James
he?
McGrath. James the Beast McGrath.
Okay. All right, interesting. All right, well then that one.
Okay.
I was going to talk about Ian Gruffel.
We can talk about
Ian. What is it?
I thought it was Johan, but
Johan?
I could be.
Johan
I
Gruffel.
might just be saying the letters that are there.
Yeah, Gruffel.
Gruffel.
Oh, Gruffy.
Old Gruff, Mr. Fantastic himself.
The obvious that this was the villain who on the way to the movie, I'm like, yeah, he's the villain of the movie. Obviously.
It is obviously because looking at the cast list, I didn't know that this other white guy was like a cop from the third one. So yeah, clearly Johan Gruffel.
On the way to the movie, you were like, how do you know he's the villain? I'm like, he's the only one who hasn't been in one of the other movies.
It could be a red herring.
And also, he looks like a guy who is running for Senate and is setting up someone to take the fall so he can look tough on crime. And literally his first line in the movie is Will Smith goes, "Good evening, Senator." And he goes, "I'm not Senator yet." And I started hitting you and gave you the dirtiest look of like, I fucking knew he was running for Senate. This I'm running for Senate looking motherfucker. I can see that a mile away that he's running for Senate.
Well, aren't you good? Because I was watching this movie through the goggles of my Fantastic Four youth, and I've actually never seen Johan Gruffel play a bad guy before. I've actually watched a lot of things he's in. I used to watch Horatio Hornblower. I'm quite a fan of his work. He usually plays like baby-faced good guy.
Sure.
I think he's only finally gotten old enough.
He's in his villain era now.
Yeah, he's in his villain era. He's got just a little bit of gray, and he's ready to be in charge. Yeah, he's lost that like baby boy innocence. So I see what you're saying now. I didn't even think he probably wasn't the bad guy, but I was like, it could be someone else. There's a lot of people on this cast list. There's another guy, and then there's that girl.
There's
somebody, and there's somebody else. It could have been either of them.
But they got both those guys from the other movies. So don't forget, somebody and somebody else were in the previous films. So you have to keep that in mind.
You have to keep that in mind. But you were right. Congratulations. You nailed it. You're very good at movies. Andrew is a king of movies.
I know who the villain is. His first line being, "I'm not Senator yet." I was like, God damn it, that's funny.
But not as funny as his later line when his girlfriend, who finds out she's evil, is like, "How could you do this?" And he went, "After 9/11.
Fuck, that was so funny.
9/11? You were like 18 years old, buddy. What are you talking about? You're only a little bit older than me, Johan Gruffel."
Oh my God. And also
I feel bad that we started laughing so hard because I actually didn't hear much of his explanation beyond that.
His explanation, and I'm paraphrasing, but I did hear his explanation, even though I was busting a nut laughing. His explanation was that after 9/11, we made a deal with the cartels where we transport their drugs, but they let us know when there's going to be terrorism. And we get to stop it. And he goes, and look, there's been no terrorism since 9/11, so it works.
So the villain was right, you guys.
And I don't know if it's meant to be a joke, but that's the funniest funniest shit in the world.
You know how the cartels know about everyone's terrorism?
Holy shit! When he was like, "It works, it works." There's been no terrorism since 9/11, and it's because the cartels tip us off.
Oh my god, yeah, it was so funny. Of all the words I thought were gonna come out of his mouth about his explanation of why he went evil, I didn't think he was gonna bring 9/11 into this.
No, I did not expect after 9/11.
I was like, what year did they write this script?
Oh my god!
Like, it feels like a script that was written in like 2006, like closer to 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a real like Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like it was a different script, and they just kind of inserted the characters in it.
But they never changed that one bit about 9/11.
Oh, after 9/11 is just so. And his speech of like, so we let the cartels bring drugs in, and that way there's been no terrorism, which is like those things aren't related. And it felt so much. It felt identical to there's an episode of The Simpsons, I think, about like a bear attack. When it's like the city spends a bunch of money on bears, and there's like bear patrol tanks and bear patrol helicopters going by, and the city's spending so much money. And like Homer's like, "See, Lisa, it works." And she's like, "That's not proof that it works. That's just proof that you did this." She's like, "I have this rock. If I told you this rock prevented lion attacks because there's no lion attacks, would you believe it?" And like Homer's like, "I'd give you $200 for that rock."
Give you $200 for that
and
rock.
this is the like, well, there's been no terrorism since 9/11, so clearly the Mexican cartels are bringing drugs in are the reason that America has not suffered a second 9/11.
We have to teach senators about the difference between causation and correlation. Oh
my
boy.
God.
That was quite a scene.
And why a dead captain needs to take the heat for any of it, I don't know either.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten away. It's already done. Like, they've gotten away with it.
All they did was put $100 million of their money in an account that they now can't have access to because the cops have it.
And then spent insane amounts of money on this murder spree as well.
Yeah, I think if I watched it again, I might be able to track their reasoning, but
I don't know.
It doesn't really track. I think they were like looking for his physical files, but like this doesn't help them.
No.
Framing him doesn't help them find the physical files.
It made it actively worse.
Yeah, because
frankly.
Will Smith and Martin Lawrence weren't looking for the physical files until any of this happened. But then they found them.
Yeah.
And that helped.
So this made things worse.
So I have to ask a question. So this guy who's like there's like two young cops who work with them, Dorn and then Vanessa Hudgens Kelly.
Yeah, from the last movie.
From the last movie. I cannot look at this man, Alexander Ludwig, playing Dorn and take him seriously because he looks way too much like Bobby from Queer Eye. And every time I look at him, I'm like, Bobby from Queer Eye works on this cop team.
Interesting.
I couldn't unsee it once I saw it. And it was very distracting.
I can kind of see it.
I'm not even saying they're doppelgangers, but I'm saying I saw it immediately.
But you're saying you see it.
And I latched onto it, and I'm like, when's he going to build a deck?
You know what? I have done that as well in previous films where I've just been like, I think this person's like that. And then you start spiraling and you can't think of anything else. And also you look for more and more connections.
And it is like, and also I guess I was like, I kept being confused that he was like the hacker guy. Because I'm like, we already had a big hacker guy and it was Fletcher. You can't have a movie with two big guys who are the hacker. We did the joke already.
Yeah, but Fletcher was not the hacker in this movie.
We do it every movie. We make the biggest guy the hacker.
Well, yeah, we need a different hacker, and like that was you're bringing your Bad Boys 1 baggage into this.
I guess.
You know, this guy,
my baggage.
This guy, and
my unresolved trauma.
Absolutely, Alexander Ludwig and Vanessa Hudgens. They both work for. And they...
I think they're regular police.
No, they're not police.
No, they work for Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. They're on the same, like, squad.
No, that's because last movie...
Oh, shit. Jesus
well,
Christ.
I think last movie, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence were also like, we can't trust our squad. And I think they're part of, like, S.H.I.E.L.D.? I don't know. There's some paramilitary shit. They're not cops. They're not cops.
They're the Jump Street crew.
Like, they have their own, like, surveillance gear in a houseboat that they live... Like, they are, I think, like, an off-the-books paramilitary something. Or they're S.H.I.E.L.D.
I thought that was just his house.
Oh no! Like I think they run like a side operation.
All right, I
think.
believe it. I haven't. It's been a while since we watched 3. We
Yes.
watched 3 when it came out. We didn't rewatch it for the pod.
And this movie also just has a lot going on.
It has too much happening. It has a lot happening. At the very end, what happens that I need to talk about before we wrap things up is I'm very conflicted about where we end up with Joe Pantaleone's daughter is the U.S. Marshal who hates Will Smith's son because Will Smith killed her dad.
Sure.
And then they have this like nice moment where she decides not to kill him even though she promised she would because he saved her daughter. So she's like, I'm not going to kill him. But then she doesn't make him go back to prison even though he full on was convicted of killing her dad.
Yeah.
And that seemed like a step too far. I was like, proud of you for not killing him. I think that's great. He should go to prison again. He should be in prison, right?
I feel like they were soft about whether or not he did the murder.
He did the murder. He admitted to it.
Yeah, okay.
They showed footage of it.
Yeah.
No.
I think it was just like someone else put the captain on the list of people to be murdered or whatever.
Yes, but he definitely did it.
He did physically do the murder. I feel like that's another of this movie trying to be like, Fast and Furious gets away with this.
Oh, like how Brian lets Dom go.
I mean, yeah, how Jason Statham killed Han. And then later they undid that, but still,
But this isn't
as far as they knew,
this isn't Will Smith letting his son go. This is a woman who doesn't know this man, except for the fact that he killed her dad.
Sure.
And just being like, fine, no jail for you.
Yeah. Well, like, they're trying to Fast and Furious it, I think is the only explanation that I have here.
That is actually a pretty good explanation. I mean, I will say.
Of them being like, they'd be like, there's 9 different kinds of cops. And like, this movie isn't just about cops anymore. I think they're trying to be like, it's about cops who are working with a paramilitary organization and criminals and the U.S. Marshals all to take down a bigger form of sillier corruption. I think is kind of what they were doing here. Going for a real Fast and Furious thing.
I can get behind that. That's fair. Although I will say also she might have let him go because he for sure just died further down that river.
He was stabbed pretty good.
He was stabbed multiple. Like Will Smith was like, "You're good," and there's so much blood on this man.
The cheek in the arm was nothing. The one straight up in like the shoulder meat down into the back, I'm like, that's bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's a bad
I think he had a couple arm ones and maybe a grazed abdomen, and then Will Smith just sends him off alone with no supplies down the river, and I'm like, he's just gonna die.
He's gonna die.
He can't go to a hospital.
I think actually, I don't know. He seems like he's gonna be all right.
I mean, he does seem like he's really tough.
Yeah, he's doing pretty good.
I will say he's tough.
He's
and
tough
cool.
and cool. And I think the last thing that I do want to mention is just like talking about like we've talked about some of the different action scenes. This final action sequence, this raid at like what used to be a derelict alligator museum that still has
the
derelict alligator museum. It's been closed down alligator museum. What looks like it would have been Killer Croc's hideout in Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah,
like
he would have loved it here.
This level of like it's an abandoned crocodile factory for some reason with a big crocodile in it. They do some bananas wild stuff, just choices in these action scenes as well. The first person POV shots from the perspective of the guns was wild. And when I say first person POV, for those of you who did not see this movie, you might be thinking like a video game. The way a video game will do a first person POV and you see the gun. I don't mean the POV of a person holding the gun. I mean the POV of the gun.
It's very far down the barrel.
It's on the barrel.
It's like no hand.
It's like if you strapped a GoPro to the top of gun and filmed that to the point where at one point, one of the characters throws their gun to another character and the camera jumps through the air with the gun. It's POV of the character gun. That is such a wild choice and it kind of works, but I like that they're just fucking going for it. And I like that a lot.
This sequence actually didn't work for me, but I respected the hell out of it for trying something. And also I respected it because I'd already seen the behind the scenes footage of how they shot it. And it was actually kind of cool if you haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. So Will Smith, I don't think Martin Lawrence did it. Will Smith is actually wearing a rig. And like, so it's like the camera's on his face during that point. And then whenever it goes to gun mode, he flips the camera himself and that's his hands holding the gun.
Oh, shit.
So he's wearing a camera in front of him that he keeps flipping around as he's going through the scene, whether he wants his own face or the gun's POV.
Damn.
So he's his own cameraman.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. Again, I didn't think the sequence worked, but I'm like, but cool.
Yeah.
You tried this. I also think the elevator fight with Johan Gruffold and his girlfriend was like different and cool. The way they just shot it from the outside and the elevator's going down the whole time.
A like 8th action scene we almost forgot to bring up. There's so many peculiar action scenes in this movie.
And I will say this movie didn't have a very big budget. It had $100 million budget. So it really like...
It does a lot with what it...
It does a lot. Like a lot more action scenes than you'd expect that are all like pretty fun and cool and different.
I'm going to say in that final action scene as well, the drone footage of it like flying around the room and like grabbing a bunch of different people doing different shit. And when Vanessa Hudgens and Alexander Ludwig's character, when they're like back to back, and I think she grabs his gun from his holster to shoot someone.
Like a cool couple thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's fun. And that was all kind of it was like a drone flying in through the door. It was like that kind of a camera angle of like drone footage through the door, up a staircase, around the room and shit. And normally I think that like drone footage is a little bit like, it's cheesy, it's dumb. It's like, I get it, we have drones now. And a lot of like directors and cinematographers kind of shoot their wad for it, and Michael Bay being one of them. But this is one where I'm like, actually it looks pretty fucking cool. It's kind of fun. I like these little moments and beats that you put in here. It worked for me. I liked that.
It was cool and fun. And they did it early enough in the sequence that it made this fun runner that also gave you a sense of the geography of the place.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too.
It was like, we're going to go through because there's some stairs. So there's an upstairs part and there's a downstairs part and there's a couple walls. So it's like, no, we're going to give you a layout so you know where everyone's hiding and what everyone's doing. So it was actually like a really well-placed drone footage as well of like, this is fun and also practical for you to know the layout of this place.
I'm with that.
So I liked it.
Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now we've discussed everything we've discussed. What would you change about this if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we will remind you, as we do every week, to please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us move up the charts. It helps us find new listeners. And when new listeners do find us, it makes it more likely that they'll actually hit subscribe or hit download and check us out. And while you're doing it, do it for a couple of your favorite podcasts, because every single podcast asks you to do this, and it is for a reason. It is because it helps us grow and expand. So take 5 minutes out of your day, pick like 3 podcasts you love, do a free thing to help them out.
You should also do it because I like to read them.
Oh, that's nice too.
I think this is just this is the reason I want you to do it. I like reading them. We recently got our first review from Finland, and I was like, hey, Finland!
What's up, Finland?
Just a shout out to Finland real quick.
Quick shout
Love
out.
hitting those new countries.
Quick shout out to Finland. Thank you very much. That's it. That's it.
That's
shout out Finland.
Shout out Finland. Leave a 5-star review if you want a shout out from a country who has not left a review before.
Whatever country you are in, go look at our reviews, because it does like it
you
locks
can't see
it. You can't see other countries.
We
So-
can.
We can, but you can't. So if you're in a country and listening to us, and you're like, you go to check out our reviews and you don't see one, it's not that no one's reviewed us. It's that no one has reviewed us in your country, and you could be the first, or like one of the first, like the first 5 in new countries are cool. Get in there. Like,
You can represent your country.
yeah, that's fun.
Like that person from Finland
Yeah.
represented them. I apologize that I don't have your review open, but it was nice.
It was nice. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And as well, if you do want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on our Patreon page, which is a monthly subscription service. You can subscribe at whatever is in your budget, get cool bonuses for doing so. At the $1 level, you get our webcomic early. At the $3 level, you get these episodes early and ad-free, which is great for new movies and TV shows like this one, where you could have been listening to this on Thursday or Friday instead of on Monday. And
Monday after the weekend.
Garfield hates those. And as well, at the $10 level, you can get an exclusive bonus episode of this podcast every single month. This month, we did the original 1995 Bad Boys, and that was such a fun episode.
That was a fun movie and a fun episode. Absolute bangers. Last month we did Mad Max. Before we did Mad Max Fury Road. There is some great stuff over on the Patreon episodes.
This month's original Bad Boys episode, I'm putting it in the like A tier of episodes we've done of this podcast.
It was great.
Yeah,
we nailed it.
Yeah, we did nail it. It was quite good.
If I could leave us a review, it would be 5 stars.
Yeah.
That was great.
Nailed that one. So if you head on over to the Patreon page, if you subscribe at that $10 hero level, you get immediate access to that Bad Boys episode, as well as the whole back catalog of the Patreon exclusives. Check out the options over at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is Patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
My change, we've already discussed it, but I wrote it down before we started, so now I have to keep it. My change is actually the middle is going to be shorter. We talked about how it drags, so I'm going to have maybe just one scene in the forest after the plane crashes. We're going to cut the rednecks entirely. That, as we said, that didn't land. It was a cool idea on paper, but definitely absolutely cuttable. It doesn't add anything to the... They don't even have any jokes later about the clothes they're wearing, which is like what you would do in that scenario. So we're going to cut the rednecks, cut the forest, cut most of the extra cop stuff that isn't Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And I'm going to add like more... I'm going to fill in that time, though, because I do want more of this Warriors, like... gangs vying for $5 million to get them. So I want more Big Bang explosions going on. And then just also as a side note, I'm going to just keep the runner of like Martin Lawrence wanting candy. I think that's just easy and fun and cute. You can put that into so many scenes that he is just... Because in the first movie, there's a great runner about how Martin Lawrence hasn't had sex in months. And every time he tries to have sex with his wife, something happens and he can't go home. And it is a very funny thing that happens throughout the whole movie. And the candy feels like the sex in the first movie, except they drop it about 25 minutes in. And it's like he should keep wanting candy.
They give him candy in the next action scene.
And then he never wants it again.
You
it should be a
withhold it.
thing he's trying to get for 2 hours straight and cannot get. And that would be very funny. And also, I actually don't think the panic attacks worked for me. They had to be introduced sooner or made clearer about what was causing them. That was all fuzzy for me. So Candy Runner is longer. Panic attacks are more clear, and we're cutting a bunch of stuff out of the middle. Those are my changes. Andrew, what would you change in Bad Boys Ride or Die?
Continuing the idea of just cutting stuff out of the middle, I think the entire U.S. Marshal daughter and granddaughter storyline is gone. Gone. It does nothing. She's
but
like...
how will the son redeem himself?
Yeah, by going on this adventure.
Yeah,
like, that's
did.
it. Like, literally, this movie has two options if it wants to redeem the son and make it one of the like lead characters of the movie. To be like, yeah, this guy is a murderer and an assassin, but now he's friends with our heroes. Like, if you want to be Fast and Furious, you need to just be like, yeah, this guy is a cold-blooded murderer. We've seen him do murders. Now he's helping our heroes. Get on board or get out of the movie theater. That's the option you have to give the audience. Like,
you can
that's
ride
it.
or you can die.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't be like, but what if he saved one child? It's like, no, we saw him literally like murder that girl's grandfather. It's just like, we either got to accept that we're on the same side if we're on the same side, and that's it. And morality is irrelevant. So I think the whole U.S. Marshal storyline, it gets in the way of like the daughter being like, oh, now I don't trust Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Send the cops after them. Put up a roadblock. But that never actually adds any obstacles to our hero's journey.
Not a single time.
The hero's obstacles come from a plane crash, a group of assassins, a group of gangs coming after them. At no point do the U.S. Marshals pose any kind of a threat or a concern. And it's just a lot of wasted screen time. And the son is redeemed, air quote, redeemed enough just by being along for this journey. And it's more about like Will Smith forgiving him than it is actually about redeeming the son. So who gives a shit anyway?
I mean, also, if you cut the blonde cop, he can still save Will Smith's wife.
Yeah.
That's That's still the person he's there saving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that very much relates more to the father-son relationship we're having happen here when he's got weird issues about his own mom.
Absolutely. He's already saving and he's already going on the journey. So that is my main thing. The U.S. Marshal daughter and granddaughter just are gone. That's irrelevant. And also the FBI guy. Why they had a joint task force and this FBI guy had like 3 scenes?
Well, he was the other red herring who could have been the bad guy.
Yeah, if you're not dedicating to a red herring, just get it. It's in the way. If you're not even going to have a like at no point do our lead characters even be like, I don't think I trust that FBI guy. The lead characters are just like, let's go look for evidence. Like those people we met were largely irrelevant to what we're doing. To be like,
they were somebody and somebody else.
Yeah. It's us, the lead characters, and we're trying to pick up that file there on that table, and on the table next to it is a bunch of guns and then bad guys. And it's like, well, no one cares what FBI guy is doing, so he's also gone. But
right, no.
That's how I keep the rhythm in the middle.
We can trim some fat from this movie. I agree.
That's how I trim the middle.
I love
Marshall
this.
story gone.
I'm totally fine with this.
Sweet.
Get rid of it.
Well, that is going to do it for us for Bad Boys Ride or Die. Next week on the podcast, we are going to be back and we're going to be talking about the Star Wars Disney Plus television series, The Acolyte.
We're coming for you, The Acolyte.
We'll be talking about the first 4 episodes of that show. So we'll be talking about The Acolyte next week on the podcast.
Acolyte Ride or Die.
Acolyte Ride or Die. Everyone's saying it. And in the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find me online. I'm on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. I am at Ivimey, Ivimey.
I'm on Instagram, and am I still on Twitter? I tweet every now and then. I'm Words of Diana or Pics of Diana. I'm around. You'll find me.
And you can find both of us most places at From Superheroes, and you can check out all the podcasts and everything that we create over on our website, fromsuperheroes.com. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.